It's got a lot of potential.
誰？Whisky? Ah, terrible! Look at the never lucky my secret. Oh no! Suddenly hit! Ah, no, leave me! Let's begin. Indeed.
They did that.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and this is the Fireside Chat. We are on Fireside Chat number 232. A lot of guests. And on today's very special show, because all of our Fireside Chats are special, I have a returning guest, Kat Ishiro, and I guess your partner in crime, Kat Rocha. How do you say it? Is it Rocha? Rocha, yep. Okay. Yes,
you got it right the first time.
Oh, good. I didn't want to say roach. I thought that might be a little gross, but and you guys are podcasters. You have a show called Wordcraft Podcast, I guess. And you are creatives, you're writers, and you are very, very interested in the culture. Are those kind of like accurate presumptions?
Yeah, we've been within the comics industry since 2006. We've kind of made the round. We worked for DC Comics. We did a couple books for Archaea Studios. We started our own publishing company.
01 Publishing.
We've done a lot of game illustration.
Nice.
We have our own podcast, Wordcraft, which is about, exposing readers to new writers or stuff that isn't woke. And we've got our weekly podcast, Pissed Off Gen Xers.
Oh, really? Oh, so you guys are Gen Xers too?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's going to come down to Gen X in a lot of ways to like step in, really. We kind of grew up in what I think was like probably a really good time for media and culture, and
oh yeah,
it was like our books, our films, our shows, everything. So I guess first of all, I want to shout out to Rumble. So hello people in the Rumble group. Please go to Rumble and subscribe there. I think that we started talking about this a little bit. I think that Rumble is very promising as an alternative to YouTube. They've gotten stuff right that like BitChute didn't quite get, and they still haven't done. For example, live streaming. I think live streaming on Rumble is really great. A lot of very big content creators are on Rumble. So I would say, if you can, go to Rumble and subscribe to us there. It's HB Radio. There's a phone app for it. There's a tablet app for it. You can put it on your Amazon Fire Stick. It's pretty accessible. So, and I think Rumble's gonna grow. I think it's gonna continue to grow. And they're pretty free speech oriented, which is I think the main thing. So anyway, so yeah, shout out to the Rumble gang. So I guess like a lot's happened since last time we spoke. What are you guys like? Do you have any goals for not just your channel, but what it is you do? What are you hoping to do? Is it just expose people to new content or what?
Oh, primarily, yes. It's to expose people to new content, good content. I suppose the double-edged sword of the internet and the current publishing world is that anybody can get their stuff out there, and that's great. But at the same time, anybody can get their stuff out there. It's harder to find quality stuff or things that, to put it bluntly, aren't going to necessarily preach at you. And so that was one of the goals of 01 Publishing, is to put content out there that was good storytelling, that wasn't woke, didn't shy away from sensitive subject matters. In fact, our tagline is no safe spaces. And basically dare people to think. And recently, with that said, though it was never our intent to enter into anything resembling a political space. We did find that it was very important to put out Ishii's latest book, Boobs of Steel, because it's tackling a subject matter that's very near and dear to your audience's
Chest.
yes. Well, basically, I know the main focus of the honey badgers, and it's a topic that I very much so support, is telling men that it's okay to be men. Well, with that said, Boobs of Steel goes along with that, because not only is it talking about the attack of femininity and what is a woman in pop culture, but also the attack on men for liking to look at women. It's not a bad thing. And there's so much more to this book than that, but that's one of the main things, and I wanted to immediately throw that out there.
Oh no, it's good that you
audience.
did. Yeah. So so is Boobs of Steel a story, or is it kind of like is it like infotainment, like or edutainment?
Well, that's kind of it's entertaining to read. I made sure of that. It's not written like a textbook if that's what you're asking. I'm primarily known for doing like my graphic novels, Case File Arkham, for instance, World War Kaiju. I've got a big pile of graphic novels I've done. But 2 years ago, I sat down to write an essay originally, and it was about the fact that we saw as far back as 2008, 2007, when I would say 2008, Big Bang Theory, we started getting all these new fans flooding into geek culture, and with it came a lot of gender studies majors and millennial feminists, and you go down the list, and they were there for all the wrong reasons. As a community, the comics community was more than happy to welcome them through the door, as was the sci-fi community, as was Star Wars, as was Star Trek. You got on the list, everybody was fine letting them in, but their presence became very, very toxic. It was all about colonization. They were they took the whole thing over and burnt it to the ground. And they had
evidenced by Star Wars.
They had no love of the properties. It was simply a fad. It was obvious they didn't like any of the stuff. They kept going, I've always loved comics, but yet you wanted to read like Twilight.
Well, there's a difference between liking like the Ninja Turtles or like Marvel comics and like Love and Rockets. So I mean, it's if that's what you you can have it, but like just that's a different thing.
No, these people didn't like any of it.
Yeah, they didn't like any of it.
They were posers.
Yeah.
But the very first thing they always went after was they showed up, and the first thing they went after was, oh well, Power Girl's sexist. Why? Boobs. Why? Boobs.
Oh yeah. The character Power Girl, not the series Powerpuff Girls. I'm sorry. I got it mixed up. No.
Oh, totally different.
Yeah,
the
very
Wonder
different.
Woman, She-Hulk. That's sexist. Why? Boobs.
Oh?
Where? No. You need more of an argument than that.
How about men like them?
And it was just taken as fact. And you wrote an essay in 2009 about Power Girl.
Yes.
You want to talk a little about that?
Basically, I was utterly disgusted and disappointed with Amanda Connor and Palmiotti's portrayal of Power Girl, where they did not diminish her chest. In fact, they enhanced it. In fact, her boob window, as it were, was usually actually pretty small, and they made it like the entire outfit, and then made her a clown and a laughing stock and the babysitter to Harley Quinn.
It was just one ongoing boob joke. They'd taken a great character with a certain body type and ridiculed the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And this was a response, or were the feminists responding to the joke and saying
Oh,
this
no,
is
no,
the
the
norm?
feminists loved it.
Yeah. The
Oh, they
feminists
did.
loved it.
Oh, okay,
They
okay.
turned her into a laughingstock. They
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you can point and ridicule and laugh at her, and she's no longer an object of femininity and of female power.
Oh, I
She's
see.
now a clown. She's a
Yeah,
joke.
she's a parody of what men like in women. It's basically being used as a bludgeon against men for liking attractive women.
And
Exactly.
it was one character out of hundreds of DC characters. This one character with a certain body type was not allowed.
Right.
Why? And it went from there, and we fast forward to now, and Katie Sackhoff on The Mandalorian, who's got a B cup. They're bitching about it.
Mm-hmm.
It went from, oh, well, her boobs are too big, to she can't have any boobs.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're wondering why we've got teenage girls cutting their tits off and trying to be men.
Yeah. Well,
This didn't come out of nowhere.
No, of course not. I've talked about this on the show a lot. I think a lot of this propaganda and this queer theory, feminist theory, education, it all comes from feminist theory. Critical race theory, queer theory, all of it comes from feminist theory at the end of the day. But it's been going on since before we were born. It's like very old, and it was in our education, in our pulp culture, in our media, in academia. It's in everywhere. It's in our politics. And I think that it's just becoming a lot more obvious in the last, say, 50 years to people. But it's always been there. And the thing that is interesting about what you're saying is that feminism is at once, and of course this sounds like a paradox, but it really isn't. At once, it's prudish, and it's anti-woman, it's anti-man, it's anti, like love and sexuality and beauty. It's anti-beauty. It's all pro-ugliness, but it's also extremely degenerate. Like, it wants everything to be sexualized. It sees, like, men can't be friends with each other. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like,
I've noticed.
yeah.
male friendships can't exist without homosexual undertones, or overtones rather, and female relationships are just as bad in many cases, or there's a sisterhood, and it's anti-family, it's anti-natalist, and yet, like I said, it's like it's at once it's beyond Puritanist, and at the same time it's absolutely like degenerate.
It's Puritan if it comes to normal, healthy male-female interaction. A
Yes.
healthy sexual relationship between a grown man and a grown woman is a crime against humanity. A woman looking like a feminine woman is a crime against humanity. Men having healthy relationships with each other and women, crime against humanity. But if you want to put on heels and flap your dick around in front of children, that's great.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's very selective. I think it really does, like you said, it comes down to, is it going to make men happy or not, right? That's kind of ultimately what it is. If it makes men happy, it has to go. And by extension, that means women too, but...
As I cover in Boobs of Steel, it's going to be a 3-part series, by the way, is the beginning that I can trace it back to. The furthest point I can trace it back to is the 1940s with Simone de Beauvoir declaring that women aren't born, they are made. That there's no such thing as a woman, that they are a manufactured social concept by men to make them slaves. Now that and guess what else she was? She was a big buddy with Foucault, and they were all big into pedophilia and communism. They were all pedophiles and communists. That's not a coincidence. Now that message,
I don't find that that's a coincidence today.
Now
So-
that message didn't really resonate well with the Rosie the Riveter generation. They were more than happy to go back home and be moms. They'd fought their war, they'd done their part. They were happy to go back to their lives for the most part. This whole myth that they were forced out of the workplace is bullshit. Most of them were, hey, your grandmother was more than happy to stop. You remember?
Yeah.
That they wanted to go be moms.
Yep.
But for some reason, that message from Beauvoir stood out and really resonated with the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And
the sexual revolution.
Just about everything the feminists wrote back then in some way rooted back to that concept that women aren't real. It's a social concept. And they also went out of their way to portray the lot in life of a woman of being utter misery. And now, if you're going on and saying, oh, women, being female just means you're a slave, being female means utter misery and living in constant fear with having no opportunities. Again, I repeat, why is anyone surprised that, a few more decades later, we've got little girls getting their tits chopped off and claiming they're non-binary to escape womanhood?
Right. Or boys taking hormones so that they can try to get some of that juicy female privilege that they see everywhere around them.
Like, little boys being put on strip teases.
Yeah.
That's just disgusting.
And it's moms doing this.
Yeah,
it is. Single moms. It's single moms doing it, especially. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really applaud, was it Kelly J. Keene for what she's doing? You're familiar with her, right?
I know who she is. Yeah, she was a feminist that we used to respond to a lot, and in a way, I have mixed feelings about her because even though she's feeling the sting of all this shit now, she was a part of the problem 10 years ago because she was a big old feminist that was men are the problem, patriarchy, down with it, etc. And now we're at this point where men are becoming women because they feel so awful about being men, and now she's like, oh, get out of my bathroom. It's like, well, you did this.
That's my point. Is that the feminists who are waking up and pushing back, ladies, you're never going to win this fight until you fucking own the fact you did this to yourself.
Yes.
You did this.
Yes. And they're not owning up to it.
No, they're claiming it's more patriarchy.
Yeah, they're just calling it more patriarchy, which is doubling down on the same old lies, which isn't really going to solve anything. This is what, I know this Kelly J. Keene thing is really a bit of a digression, but it is really frustrating to see feminists that have hated men, that have all propped up women constantly, that have claimed victimhood for women, and now they are seeing the fruits of their work and they're still blaming men for it. This is going to destroy our society. It really is. And they're not powerless. Feminism is the status quo. It runs the institutions, it educates people, it's everything. What we're doing, I just saw a video today on the Lotus Eaters, and there was a discussion between, who the Lotus Eaters are, I assume, or
I
do.
do.
Okay, yeah. So
and
Carl,
you know what, Colum? I sent you a book. I sent you this book. Read it.
Yeah.
Seriously, Colum.
So I don't think Colin's gonna see this, but it would be nice if he did. But so in the discussion, Carl Benjamin was talking to Philip Tanzer. Now Philip Tanzer was a men's rights activist. I don't know if he still is. I'll just say was, but probably still is. And he found us, in 2016, we had an international conference on men's issues in the UK, and he went there. It was his first time ever going, and at the time, he considered himself an egalitarian, equalist type. He didn't want to be an MRA. The word, the term MRA still had, the stench on it, right? It still had the cooties, so it was well, I don't want to call myself that, but I want to help you guys. And over time, he became more and more interested. And then I saw him on the Lotus Eaters today, and I didn't watch the whole video, so forgive me, but I asked one of my patrons to watch it, because in it, they basically said the men's movement is dying, and that, no one is, it's running out of steam, nobody cares anymore, blah, 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 right? And I was upset by that, because it's we're the underdogs, and I mean not just the underdogs. We're so, you know what I mean? Just me saying, you know what, I care about men, it drives people away. They don't have to be feminists. They can be normal people. They can even be people that actually say they care about men, and it's so frustrating because it's we can't quit, because what's going to happen is if we don't stop, and I do think that we're making a lot of gains, by the way. as an aside. I don't think that it's dying. I think it's growing. But one of the things that is the people are going to have to wake up to is the fact that with the declining birth rates, fewer men and women are getting married, fewer men and women are having kids. All of these like substrates and these infrastructure and the welfare state and the taxation, everything, it's gonna go. Like, because there aren't enough men to pay into the system, because men are the primary ones that pay into the system. And women are the ones that take money out of the system. Like, they're the ones we give all the benefits to, by and large, right? So it's not sustainable. So like, it's gonna have to collapse. It's the only way people are gonna realize. You know,
so Kevin Tanza, or what's his name?
No, his name is and I'm not attacking Philip, but it's Philip Tanzer, Tanzer.
Philip Tanzer.
He used to be a gay porn star, but he before he got involved with us, right? But he's since gotten married and like to a woman, and he lives in Scotland.
Well, here's
Go
the
ahead.
thing. Here's my opinion. Because I've followed you guys since, oh God, at least 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
When Gamergate was going on?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I found you guys. My take on this is that the argument and the battlefield has changed. In a lot of ways, the plight of the men you're talking about now, because before you were talking primarily about Gen X men, we're all in middle age now. That baby creating part is past. Most of us have found our equilibrium and how we're going to survive. That's part of it. Most of us have already said, okay, I got my home, I got my job, I got my retirement. You know what? If the women want to go down in flames, tough shit. That's their problem. Really, our focus has to be on mentorhood. You know, the tactics you guys were using back during Gamergate aren't going to work now. It's a different landscape. And the best thing we can do is mentor young people to maneuver and navigate this minefield.
Well, that's what we've been doing.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we've been doing, is informing people. First of all, they have to know the scope of what they're up against. It's like trying to convince a fish that they live in water. I mean, yeah,
because a lot of Zoomers are well aware of it.
Well, I mean, I think they are becoming aware of it because more of the content is getting out there. Like, I've noticed people using the word misandry, like, as a term outside of of this sort of space. As an example,
feminism has become a joke to them.
Yeah, but I mean that's true too. But I do think the Zoomers are waking up. But go ahead, Kat.
I from my observations and experience, I'm finding that a lot of Zoomers are, they look at this shit, they look at being told, what you like is sexist or evil or whatever. They're seeing the hypocrisy of it all, and they're quite frankly seeing the female population fall into these traps, into this insanity. And a lot of them are like, you know what, I'm noping out on this. And they're abstaining, they're removing themselves from the equation, which is the best thing they can do, and the worst thing for the opposition, because it's one thing to be engaged, it's another to remove yourself.
We've got a lot of Zoomers who listen to our pissed off Gen X.
Really?
Find it funny that Zoomers are all coming to our show to get information.
Yeah.
And the general attitude among them is, I'm not saving for college, I'm saving to go to a foreign country to find a wife.
Passport bros. Yeah.
Yep.
And
I
I don't
talked
blame
about
them.
that. No, I don't blame them either.
Blame them at all.
The women in the Philippines are gorgeous.
And I'll also say that unfortunately, I think the other reason the battlefield's changed, sorry millennials, I'd say maybe 30% of you guys survived, but the rest of you are a lost generation. There's nothing we can do. It's beyond help. I don't like admitting that. I think 70% of the millennials are just a lost cause.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's depressing as hell. But
yeah. Well, I mean, I am an eternal optimist. I feel like things will either level out. There'll be a lot of suffering. There'll be a lot of chaos, but it will level out. Hopefully, people will figure out what's going on. I do think that the Zoomers, what I've noticed, I saw like a study, I don't know how accurate it is, but that showed the way that it was described, because this was like a left-wing article that said it. It said that Zoomer men are moving further right and Zoomer women are moving further left. Now, I think that the language on that is a little tricky, because then you get into like, what does it even mean to go right or whatever. But what I think it means is Zoomer women are being raised, they're growing up more feminist, and Zoomer men are growing up more anti-feminist. And I think that's what it is. That's what's happening.
Well, keep in mind that by today's standards, a Clinton Democrat is a frickin' Nazi.
Yeah, I know. And it's well, because it's always like double down on the radicalism, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so culturally, I was looking at your YouTube channel. There was pretty interesting stuff on here. So I don't know if you know, and I'm going to tell you guys and the audience. So Allison is currently writing a science fiction story that it's not necessarily intended to be anti-woke. I don't think that that's necessarily a goal that you should have. I think you should try to do a good job, because if you know, all you have to do is not include wokeness and you'll be fine. like people just
write a story.
Just tell a good story. You don't have to go out of your way to make a statement. But she is trying to get her book edited. She's very excited about it. She's trying to get it done professionally. And she's looking for some support. So if you could, and maybe you guys know somebody who can be an editor or whatever for Allison. Her book is called The Captive Eye. I don't know much about it, except that she describes it as Alice in Wonderland meets Game of Thrones. I'm not sure if that's enough to go off of. But yeah, so if you want to support the funding effort she's putting towards The Captive Eye, then go to feedthebadger.com/IEYE to support. And I mean, everybody's making content now, and I think that's a really exciting it's a really exciting time. But just like Kat said, opening it up to everyone means there's going to be a lot of garbage. I mean, that's basically like the reality of it. But at least people are trying, and I think that says a lot, right? Like, if somebody's never written a book or told a story before, and they really want to be a part of the solution, and they really want to do what lefties are always telling them to, which is, well, make your own book. If you don't like what we've done to your favorite thing, like Doctor Who or Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever it is, then go make your own content. Yeah, pick any franchise, really. Any popular one. Anything that's like under the radar, doesn't get noticed, that's safe. It's good.
But the moment you're successful, they will come at you with knives.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they will.
Here's the thing. There's always been crap. There's always been an overabundance of crap. What there hasn't always been an overabundance of is internet channels dedicating their lives to crying and screaming and criticizing and throwing temper tantrums about Marvel, DC, Star Trek, Star Wars. Look, we know it's all crap. Stop complaining and go find the good stuff and promote it. You want good media? Promote good media. Now, I did want to get back to Boobs of Steel for a moment.
Sure.
We talked about millennials and Zoomers. And this book, I felt it wasn't enough to cover the culture war. It wasn't enough to talk to them about the problem, because I do get into the problem. I mean, there's going to be 3 books. The 3rd book is nothing but the culture war. I felt before we even really tackled what was wrong in depth, it was more important that we know what we've lost. And that is why a huge portion of Boobs of Steel is dedicated to actually the history of these archetypes, how to write them, why they're important, why they're symbolically significant. And I go all the way back to the Paleolithic age, showing that these characters and these symbols have been with us that long.
Yes.
And give a full education so that, there's been a lot of, there's been so much revisionist history about, oh, the golden age of sci-fi was so sexist. Oh, the golden age of sci-fi was a boys' club. No, they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. I also show that these characters are powerful, that every time Wonder Woman's come under fire or has become a political football, it has been a reflection of the times. when Frederick Wertham nearly destroyed the comics industry with his Seduction of the Innocent,
Yes.
right? He named Wonder Woman the most dangerous character in print. Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing. We're always told that Wertham was some sort of fundamentalist Christian conservative. It's a lie. We were lied to. That lie, a lot of effort was put forth to make everyone think he was a Christian conservative.
Sure.
The truth of the matter... Oh, did you read it?
No, I didn't read it, but I mean, I'm not surprised by that because of how much we've been lied to about everything else. So he wasn't actually a Christian conservative fundamentalist. So what's the truth?
The truth of the story is that he was a German Jew who had fled the Holocaust and lived safely in New York. He was a communist, and he was very wealthy. And after the United States went to war to free his people, after taking shelter in New York and being essentially safe from the Nazis, he had come to the conclusion that America was going to become the next group of Nazis, and therefore everything needed to be censored, and that he should be the arbiter of what gets censored. And he was going to start with comics and then move on to television and movies. And he was very open about this.
Yeah.
And he was such a fan of Karl Marx that he named his clinic after Karl Marx's son. So the guy was a big-time communist. Second, in the 1970s, there was this rift between the feminists. There was the pro-sex feminists, Gloria Steinem.
Sex positive and sex negative, right?
Right? That formed because the rift that caused that was Gloria Steinem put Wonder Woman on the cover of Ms. Magazine. That permanently destroyed her friendship with Betty Friedan, a communist, and the communist anti-sex wing, the we're all the same, get rid of gender group in feminism, were enraged that they would put Wonder Woman on the cover. It was a horrible image to show females. And then that same fight got even worse when a beauty queen, Linda Carter, played the character on television. That actually was the rift that split the feminist movement back in the 70s.
Not surprising, but interesting.
And here we are in the modern era in 2016, or was it 2018? I forget which.
Gal Gadot?
Well, I have opinions about Gal Gadot.
Oh, I thought you were going to mention Gal Gadot because we were talking about Wonder Woman.
No. The UN had named Wonder Woman as a symbolic ambassador for women.
Yeah.
And the feminists and the Islamic nations joined forces to get that rescinded, specifically because her boobs were too big.
Okay. I mean...
Yeah.
And, I've had people say...
Oh, and she was white.
I've had people say, well, she's a cartoon character. She's not real, so they shouldn't have been doing it anyway. Angry Birds is still their ambassadors for the environment.
Oh my God, Angry Birds.
So, yes,
well, the UN is a joke, anyways. They're all commies.
Yeah.
So
they are.
yeah, so I don't, I don't really have. I mean, the thing that's stupid about this is that. I used to draw comics, okay? When you draw female characters in comics, generally they all have the same body. So like, it's not like Wonder Woman's cleavage or boobs is bigger than Power Girls. It's all about like where you direct attention. Storm and Rogue and Jean Grey, they all have the very similar body types. They're basically the same. That didn't really because it was all about when we used to make comics, and I used to read them like in the 80s, they weren't there to differentiate that much between characters. It was just like the men look like this, the women look like this, and sometimes there are exceptions. Sometimes you have a really large man, sometimes you have a really fat guy, but like in general, they were all gonna have the same body type. And it's weird because when they point to a woman and they say, I don't like the chest on that woman, they're saying, I don't like the chest on any drawn woman because they're all basically the same. So it's not like you can, oh well, I'll change Wonder Woman, everything will be fine. No, it's they're not going to stop there, right?
Traditionally, Power Girls actually always had a bit of a bigger check.
Yeah, but it wasn't
your build.
It wasn't it wasn't like massive. It was like it was enough to basically make the point. Yeah. So
But here's another one about the fact that women and feminists specifically are hung up on this and hung up on visible signs of femininity. Since the 90s, think about it, we're in 2023. Since the 90s, feminists have been trying to get Power Girl and her tits banned.
Yeah.
Since the 90s, they've been going after Lara Croft. Since the 70s, they've been going after Barbie. Why? This isn't like they're representative of all characters. It's just that image.
Yeah, no, it is about image. It's about control. It's also about control. Like at the end of the day, they just want to control like the culture. That's why they only go after stuff that is very popular. Because then it's all with these people, it's always about top-down power. So if they can get to the highest echelons and then control from there down, they will. And this is why it usually upsets people that are like, sort of like, I guess you could say, at the grassroots of something. For example, since you remember Gamergate, do you remember Anita Sarkeesian?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I cover Anita Sarkeesian.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
And in book 2, I have a whole chapter to it.
Yeah, so Anita Sarkeesian is not particularly like special when it comes to intersectional feminists. She's basically just another one of them, and people refuted her, and we did it too online, because we wanted to like make the counter arguments. Thunderfoot probably made the most videos about Anita Sarkeesian back then than anybody, and recently it was announced Anita announced that she was shutting down Feminist Frequency, like as a channel, right? And everybody was rejoicing. Oh, feminist BTFO, blah blah blah. And I said, no, that doesn't matter. She's done what she wanted to do, because what she's done is she has gotten work as a consultant in the games industry, and now she's.
Have you seen the game industry?
Have you seen? She's
drained it dry.
She's absolutely involved. She was involved with Dishonored. She was involved with Bethesda and various other Naughty Dog. Right? She was involved with The Last of Us Part 2, which absolutely like shit on a great franchise that could have been amazing. And it's because at the end of the day, she's not trying to change the minds of like everyday gamers, just like feminists are not trying to change the minds of everyday people that are consuming content, that are getting education, whatever. She's about changing the minds of the people that matter to her, the people in power, the people that create. So if she can go to the devs and get them to change, and of course she's not the only one doing this, she's making everybody read, fucking bell hooks or whatever, then they will be influenced by that and they will create content based on that. So again, to your comment about the games industry, this is why Az had his giant meltdown about Starfield, because it had pronouns in the beginning of the game, right? And he was like, why are there fucking pronouns in this far future space game? And I was like, because these people are true believers. They're not trying to make money. I mean, do you think that...
Well,
do you think they're trying to make money, or do you think they're they don't?
Yes, actually, okay. I would say that the pattern I've seen repeatedly, you name it, Betty Friedan, Frederick Wortham, Anita Sarkeesian, you name every one of them, it's the same strategy. 1, they're a communist. 2, they show up. 3, they identify a problem that does not exist. They scream and yell and say, I'm the only one who can fix it, and you gotta pay me.
Okay.
So 1, they are con artists. Yes, they are true believers. Yes, they're communists through and through who want top-down control, but they also want all your money.
Yeah, but there's 2 ways you can make money, I guess, and she's chosen one. One is to give people a product they want, and you can make a lot of money off of that. Another is to essentially insist that you are bringing value to a company for identifying a problem and changing a problem that does not actually exist. And then you can get money from the company, or you can get money from the government, because that's what a lot of them do too. For example, Marvel Comics have been in the toilet in terms of sales, right? And the people that were in charge, I can't remember their names right off the bat, but it was women. They're feminist women. They said that they don't really care about selling comics. They care about delivering the message. Now, how do you make money without selling comics? Well, this is what they're doing. They're selling their books to public libraries. Because if they sell them to public libraries, they don't have to sell them to individual people. They don't have to sell them on the basis of the quality of their stories. They just have to get a library, which is a government-funded institution, to buy it. And they can get money from the government, which is sort of taking money from you and I indirectly. So,
well, that strategy failed, actually. They're still going out of business.
The other problem with that is, keep in mind, to be perfectly honest, the comics industry has always been a way to launder funds from other places. It was, Marvel Comics was ran by the mob.
Yeah, Stan Lee's dad, nobody wants to talk about it. Stan Lee's dad was in the mob and he was laundering money for them.
Yeah, it's always been a method of laundering money. It wasn't until the 90s that comics in general started actually making a profit.
No, 70s and 80s.
70s and 80s? Okay, thank you. Thank you for correcting me. But with that said, once movie studios started purchasing, comic companies, Marvel bought by Disney, DC got bought by Warner Brothers, it was the same thing basically. It was another way for them to launder money. But you can only launder money if the rest of your company's making a profit.
Mm-hmm.
That's not working anymore for any part of the Disney complex.
Sure,
the entire thing is falling apart.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's true. I mean, I think that was the plan. That doesn't mean they're necessarily good at what they do. Like in terms of like how they're gonna exploit the system.
Communism seems to follow this pattern of the money runs out.
Yeah.
The moment the money runs out, people start losing heads and they all turn on each other and it burns down.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying back in the aughts and even during Gamergate, people were saying, well, they're eventually going to go out of business. It's like, yeah, but this is the house we built. And how much are you going to let them burn it down? Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Comics are for everybody. Bullshit. We built this house. Go to hell. Oh, gaming's for everybody. No, guess what? Japanese people and white men made it. Go to hell. You didn't, this isn't something. Take back comics. Take back the net. No, ladies, you didn't build the net. Go to hell.
Yeah.
Seriously. It's not theirs. It never was theirs. These were communities that men who weren't popular, men who were, smart or outcast or different or creative, these were communities, these were spaces we built for us. And there was occasionally a lady who earned her place into that house. And you know what? When the feminists showed up, who'd they kick out?
Okay.
Yeah.
I had an entire gaggle of feminists come up to me at San Diego Comic-Con and tell me that if I wanted to be taken seriously, I needed to chop my tits off.
What?
Yeah, to my face at my booth.
At your boobs? Oh, at your booth. Oh, okay.
Yes, at my boobs too.
And at your boobs, yeah.
Yes.
Well, so what were you? Okay, so like, how did that happen? Can you tell me a little bit, Kat, about your experience with feminists? Why did they hate you so much?
They hated me because they came up thinking that they were going to make fun of me because I was the quote-unquote booth girl at our booth at Comic-Con. And I'm like, no, actually, I'm one of the creators. This is before we founded 01 Publishing. And they're like, well, we can help you, get ahead in life. You need to join us. And I'm like, no, I don't need you. I very politely just told them, I don't need you. I'm doing quite well on my own. And then the queen bee said, well, you're not going to get anywhere with those things. You need to chop those off.
Weren't these chicks involved with womanthology or some
shit
like that? They wanted you to contribute?
Yeah.
What's womanthology?
It was an anthology with women.
Oh, okay. Wow, really, really thoughtful. I love it when these people make up new words.
The fact that you hadn't heard about it kind of says it all, huh?
Yeah. No, I never heard of it.
Mary Sue gave it a great review, though.
Yeah, the Mary Sue gave it a great review.
Just what we need, the Mary Sue. So, I saw that. Okay, so we have all these industries, and they're all being essentially like vandalized by these people. And there's going to be burning husks left where there once was something really special. But I think that people are trying to change the culture, which is what we're talking about here. They're trying to write their own content. They're trying to promote alternatives. Unfortunately, the bar for entry is a little different depending on the industry. Like, it's not as easy to change the video games industry because the budgets are so much bigger, or the film industry. But when it comes to books and comics, for example, I think there is a lot more, like, I guess of a lot lower of an entrance, limit, if that makes sense. So I saw that you guys made a video talking about pulp. Or at least you did a little show on it, a stream about it. And I think that a pulp resurgence, I feel like that there's going to be a resurgence in pulp style content. I think it's something that people really want.
It's already here.
It's already here. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that. And maybe if one of you guys could, for the audience, in case they don't know what I mean when I say pulp stories.
Pulp came out of tradition in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, although you can date it back to the late 1800s. They were called pulp because they were printed on very, very cheap news pulp, but they were weekly at that point, monthly and weekly publications that were printing ongoing stories. They were meant strictly to entertain. It's where we get a lot of our classic characters, Conan being the most famous of them, I think. Conan, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers.
John Carter of Mars.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And none of this stuff was written to be classics. They were written to please and entertain, especially during the Depression and then the war years. And what they offered was escapism, heroism, high adventure. Men were men, women were beautiful. The bad guys were bad. It was the stuff that the original Star Wars was made of, really.
It was actually
Star Wars,
George Lucas said that he was basing it on the old pulps. Originally, it was going to be Flash Gordon, but he had trouble with the rights, so he came up with his own thing.
And you will get a history of the pulps in Boobs of Steel, by the way, because I do cover it in depth. The thing about pulps is it's already back. There's a thing called Pulp Rev, as in revolution. And you've got authors like Jason Anspach, Nick Cole, Rolf Bloodthorn, John Z. Williamson, on the list. Yeah, Declan Finn, however you want to pronounce it. There are all these different writers. They're just not getting any attention. Fiona Wolf. There's a website called upstreamreviews.com that does nothing but review these kinds of books. And there's been quite an explosion, but they're not giving much coverage because, those are conservative people. Those are libertarians.
Yeah, of course.
And they're hated and despised. So the pulp scene is exploding. There are magazines like Trikova or Surkova, depending on how you pronounce it. There's Anvil magazine, there's Story Hack. It's really a happening scene. It's just not getting the attention it should. And Williams books.
William Hastings.
William Hastings books are really good. But yeah, there is no shortage of good pulp material coming out. It's just not getting the coverage it should.
Right, of course not, because like you said, it's like not approved by the powers that be, and most likely the people who make a lot of like content critical of that are sort of fighting the culture war are not aware of this, and so they're not mentioning it, or they're trying to create and promote their own thing.
Here's the thing about pulp, and this is, sorry, I'm probably going to hurt a lot of people's hero worship, but in the 50s and 60s, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, a whole bunch of the New York commies that were writing for the same pulp magazines. Once sci-fi started getting an air of legitimacy, they did everything they could to make sure that pulp disappeared. They didn't want any of the pulp writers involved. They wanted it to be part of their vision of creating a socialist technocratic future. And they were called the Futurians.
Oh yeah, sure.
And you know about them, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised by this at all either.
And for years, they waged a kind of a behind-the-scenes battle with publishers to get rid of the pulps and adventurism, and it was pretty bad. I mean, it got to one point in which I know that Heinlein, which was probably more popular than either of them combined.
Oh yeah, Heinlein, the guy who wrote Starship Troopers, right?
Right.
Like the hyper-libertarian meritocratic society. Yeah.
Mhm.
At least
Arthur C. Clarke was had talked some major shit about Heinlein, and then would never be in the room with him ever again because he's afraid he was going to get his ass kicked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember. That's like when, speaking of Starship Troopers, when Paul Verhoeven made the movie, he thought that what he was presenting was a fascist world, and that's why he put them in like these kind of fashy outfits. But when you watch it and pay attention to what's happening, he didn't he didn't know what he was actually putting out there was kind of fantastic and fashionable.
Yeah. Well, the thing is Starship Troopers by Heinlein and Moon is a Harsh Mistress, I would say, should be required reading for any high school student. Those are life-changing books. They really are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're well written. But yeah, pulp is definitely on the way back. Comics is a bit fuzzier. I mean, comics is making a comeback in the indie scene. But it's a bit of a mess if you know about Comicsgate. I mean, they're doing a lot of good, but organizational skills, not so good.
There's a lot of infighting and drama. I'm aware.
Yeah, I was very involved with Comicsgate, but the infighting, I said, you know what, I'm just going to step back. As I said, I was a comics creator before I wrote Boobs of Steel. As I said, Case File Arkham. I did Titanium Rain. I've got an audio drama called Titanium Rain on Audible. World War Kaiju, Utopiates. There's a bunch of stuff I did. Anyway, comics will sort itself out. I'm sure of it. It's just somebody's got to get their act together and really just take the plunge and make a publishing company. Yeah.
Well, the cream will rise to the top, like Randy Savage said once. So, go ahead.
Gaming.
I'm sorry.
You asked about gaming.
Yes.
I can say that In Exile Entertainment's doing a damn good job, but we need more companies like them. And In Exile were the creators of the original way. They were Electronic Arts, I think. They were originally Electronic Arts back in the 80s.
Like the old, like the Road Rash days.
Yep. Yeah. Bard's Tale and Wasteland, actually.
Yeah, Wasteland.
And they got too big. Corporate America bought them out. And now they're an awful company. And the original founder said, forget this. We're not going to let that happen again. And they made In Exile Entertainment. And they've got New Bard's Tale and Wasteland 2 and 3 were excellent.
Wasteland. I heard those are really good. I wanted to ask about this because I'm actually really interested in this story about how comics were a laundering operation. Is that in your book, Boobs of Steel 2, or is that?
No.
It doesn't really have anything to do with the book.
Yeah.
I didn't really put it in there.
Okay.
I one of my hobbies is researching organized crime, and it came up in a lot of my books that comics was a way for the mafia to launder money.
Wow. Maybe there's because people are going to ask about this. They're going to want to look into it. Should I just go to your let me see. I got your website here, like a blog, Night Editor, maybe, or your Instagram or something. I don't know. Is there like a place where people can go to look at this stuff?
The YouTube is probably the best place because that's where we talk a lot. Otherwise, our publishing company is 01publishing.com.
Okay. I have a link to that in the description already, so go check it out.
We got to call it
if you guys, we gotta wrap the show up here in a second, and we'll go into the patron show and talk to the patrons. If you guys can stay, if you can't, it's okay. I'll hang out with them either way. Okay. So I didn't get any super chows or super chats. That's okay. I'll read a couple of comments that sort of jump out at me right away. Derek Workman says Nightwing was also sexualized. Yeah, but it's okay to do that to men. I already explained that. And Derek Workman says we need to bring TTRPGs back. Well, actually, there is a guy I've had on the show named RPG Pundit who specifically promotes alternatives to tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, because D&D is completely like captured, because obviously it is, because it's the most mainstream tabletop game.
All those old books are still available, guys.
Yeah, I have that whole bookshelf is old books.
Let's go back to the 90s.
But if you don't want to give them your money full stop, then yeah, like there is a great thing called the OSR, and the people there create their own content. They use the old system as a base, but it's not giving money to Wizards or Hasbro because they're absolutely toxic and cancerous. Let's see what else, if anybody has. Jim Bottle says, what about Robert Howard? Do you mean Robert E. Howard? I think that he was
creator of Conan.
Yeah, he's the creator of Conan. And what's the other one? The Witch Hunter
Solomon
guy?
Kane.
Yeah, Solomon Kane. Yes. Great movie, by the way.
And he
Yeah.
and Lovecraft were very good friends, and they'd swap characters.
Yeah. Lovecraft's great too. So you can definitely check those out. I got a super chow. Thank you for the super chow, Zeranx.
That was interesting.
The giggle? Yeah, whenever I get a super chow, I play the giggling Badger Chan. Zeranx says, for $5, I think the issue is more of time than budget. Games and movies take years to make. I think the way these industries work is when they release the one project, they're already in the middle of developing the next. Thank you for the $5. And Loquacious Primate gives us $2 as a super chat and says, Ishii and Kat are cool and you should buy his books. I will definitely check out Boobs of Steel. And I'm pretty sure this person works for you guys.
Never heard of him, but
I'm kidding. I think Loquacious Primate's been on our chat before. I will definitely check out
my books. I am going to repeat. Please check out Case File Arkham 1 and 2. Lovecraftian noir, hard-boiled detective in the 1940s in Lovecraft's Arkham.
So, sounds perfect. How do you why are you able to make this content? Like the Lovecraftian world, is it like royalty free at this point? Is that why?
Yes, it's public domain.
100%.
All those years that August Derleth claimed to own it, he was lying.
I see. It's gatekeeping, which is something that we should do. So yeah, definitely gatekeep your hobbies, guys. We're gonna head into the patron show. Stick around if you're able to, and for those of you guys who have paid that are members, join us in the patron show. We're gonna head out right now. Thank you, Ishii. Thank you, Kat, so much for coming on. And I guess I put all your links in the description. But if they want to follow you, here's what I have. I have both your Twitter accounts. I have the Night Editor link tree for Kat. I have your YouTube channel, and I think that's it. So, but the link tree has all the other places on it.
The link tree has everything.
Yeah. So, all right. So thank you so much for coming on today's episode of the Fireside Chat. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about what we discussed. What do you think about, the state of our media and culture? Do you think it's important? Do you think it isn't? Let me know. And thanks so much for coming on the show. We'll talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.